Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night.
Welcome to this town hall meeting this evening. And I would like to welcome those who are connected to us via the World Wide Web. I would welcome you also to this town hall meeting tonight. It's a town hall meeting that's been held by the coalition of civil society here on Ireland, obviously discussing issues affecting the people and giving an insight into future developments that we ought to see taking place here on Nevis. My panelist tonight is Mr. Glendale Herbert, Mr. Joseph Parry, and Mr. Daniel Arthurton. In particular, I would like to say a very, very special welcome to Mr. Joseph Parry, our elder statesman, a man who is obviously has a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience to convey to the people. We gather here tonight, my friends, because we love Nevis. I hope it's not for a display of intellectual capability or an involvement in an exercise of casual imagination. I also hope it's not to advance any political ideology or ideas arising from a conceptual position, as if to say, I have to say something, as opposed to, I have something to say. Let it be that this event has brought us together under one umbrella, which is the love we have for this beautiful little island. The relevance of this gathering was not brought to bear on us as of choice or convenience, but by necessity. Necessity because we are at a crossroad. If we turn left and follow the crowd, we might only go as far as the crowd. And that might be a good thing, and it might also be a bad thing. If we turn right, we might find ourselves in a place we've never been before. And that might be a good thing, and it might also be a bad thing. But there is one thing for certain, is that we cannot continue in the direction we are going as I speak. The undignified question has been asked, if not destiny, then what? We are left to answer this question, not by mere words, but by practical, feasible, and sustainable solutions. So tonight, we are calling upon ourselves to employ our intelligence and our resourcefulness as it becomes necessary, because on a certain governmental level, there seems to exist a bankruptcy of ideas. This gathering tonight represents a fundamental aspect of the democracy in which we live. It is tapping into the people for ideas, as we the people form the most important part of the political process. We frequently hear government for the people, by the people. How can these words carry any meaning without a process of consultation embedded in government program? This gathering also represents the medium by which transparency can be enhanced, something which seems to be very absent recently. This discussion also would qualify our concerns, not to be seen as provocative, but to be seen as constructive criticism. Tonight, we are faced with a very crucial situation on a global level and on a local level. We gather here tonight for ideas. We don't want to be looked upon as those who become encircled by the philosophical indentation which says, look at them, they're all poor. All they have is money. Tonight, we expect ideas to flow from the floor, from the World Wide Web of people who are connected to this event. And so tonight, we expect to walk away with some clarity and some ideas of solutions going forward. As I recently listened to the chairperson of the ECCB, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, he says in his promulgation of intentions going forward in the next 5 years, he says money is available. All we need is constructive ideas. And so tonight, I hope we become stimulated to the extent whereby we can table some ideas and workable ideas, feasible ideas. We have with us our panelists who is going to discuss the theme, Beyond Destiny, developing a Nevis-led economic development zone. Let me say that again. The theme for discussion would be Beyond Destiny, developing a Nevis-led economic development zone. They would approach it from government-embedded structural changes, from an enhanced fiscal policy, and also from funding strategies, example, banks, agencies, people in the diaspora, and so forth. Without any further ado, I'll pass the mic on to my good friend, Glendale Herbert.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here, and those who are with us through the World Wide Web, looking at us on our platform, on the YouTube platform, and any other platforms that we're being broadcast on. Tonight, we promises to be a night where we'll be speaking about the specific issues we think are the impediments, and that is creating an impediment in terms of growth in the country. We said no to destiny. Civil society has loudly said no to destiny. But saying no is not enough. We must offer some clarity. We must offer a way forward to the actors who sit in government and give them a path. They have a lot on their plate. They have a lot to think about. They have a lot to think about social issues and a bunch of other issues, including development issues and all that sort of thing. We have an array of talent in civil society, and with that talent, we are able to marshal ideas and bring to you a number of ideas that we think could move the country forward in those three areas in which we are going to be discussing. The first top of the topic, government embedded challenges, the challenges inside government that makes government not work for the people. The challenges in terms of that forces or causes enterprise to stumble, or people who are entering the marketplace to stumble. Whether it's the size of government, whether the embedded way people go about their work in government. Mr. Parry, as we all know, he's been the former federal minister under the PAM-NRP construct back in the 1980s, early 90s. The Honorable Joseph Parry also was a permanent secretary on the then Premier Simeon Daniel. And the Honorable Joseph Parry became elected and became deputy premier and then became premier himself. So he's very steep. He's a historian and economist. So we lean on him as a retired politician, as a very valuable special person who is amongst us and still amongst us, who can at least open our eyes and pull away the scale and begin to delve deep and tell us where the bodies are buried in government and what we need to do to at least make government work on the behalf of the people in conjunction with the private sector to move the country forward. Next is Mr. Daniel Arthurton. He has a vast resume, fellow central banker, and an agro specialist, and many commentators, social commentator, and many other things he has put his hand to. He will tell you more about himself. Myself, my history, I came out of public policy, postgrad baccalaureate level. In terms of fiscal policy, that's what my strengths were. Worked in business for the last maybe 35 years as in enterprise, real estate broker for over at least 30 years, New York, mortgage broker, registered by New York State Banking Department, and also insurance broker, cross-selling all products, and with a background in fiscal policy. So I've always been in business. I consider myself almost a business developer, trying to bring business to market. And that's basically where the thrust of my interest has been, creating opportunities, figuring out ways. So without any further ado, Mr. Parry, we're going to delve into the first issue, which is basically the embedded challenges that we face in government. The structural issues in government that we think needs to change, that we think needs to be addressed in order to foster an enterprise and to bring people into the marketplace to do business, which is the most important thing in government as it relates to putting food on table.
Thank you very much, Ben. Good night to everybody. Am I coming through? Yes. Okay. Tonight I plan to focus on the theme, but before I deal with the theme, I would like to have a brief look at the economy as we have it. Then I would like to provide or propose what I see as the industries or activities that can take the economy forward. And then I would look at problems or obstacles from a government point of view that can slow down any efforts to move the economy in a particular direction. We must accept that we are small and we have limited resources. Our population is just about 50,000, and I'm speaking about St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm not separating the two. We have to accept that we are vulnerable to natural disasters, such as Hurricane Hugo in 1989 and Hurricane Omar in 2008, which actually closed our main business activity, the Four Seasons, for about 2 or 3 years. We have to accept that we are susceptible to external shocks. For instance, the recession of 2008, a recession which started in New York and which spread all over the world and led to unemployment and hardships for many, many people. Or at the present time, the blockage of the Hormuz Strait in the Middle East, which prevents oil tankers from taking oil from the Middle East to all parts of the world, which has led to high prices in the cost of fuel And I anticipate, if this matter is not resolved quickly, could lead to the increase of prices in almost everything that we import, and can eventually cause our economy to shrink. Now, the economy, my understanding is that a budget as was presented last year by the federal government was about $1 billion. 32% of that was put aside for poverty alleviation. In 2008, when a study was done, 22% of our people were living below the accepted poverty line. I have information here that the NIA capital budget to 2024, 2025, 2026, 58.3 million, 69.3 million, 80.3 million. Now, you look at this figure and you ask yourself the first question: did we spend 58 million on capital maintenance or expansion in 2024? Or did we spend $69 million in 2025? That's the first thing that came to my mind. The second thing was this, that it was a small sum in any case in terms of economic development or economic growth. And if you look around, we have not seen any visible sign that development has taken place. Continuing to look at the economy, some people measure the economy by per capita income. And I have here that in 2023, it was about $56,177. 24, $56,143. And in 2025, $57,339. Now, it sounds impressive, but to me, that measurement does not determine the actual level of wealth or distribution of wealth in our society. In most capitalist societies, you find that a small percentage of people control the vast percentage of resources. The United States of America right now, you have a few billionaires and they control the vast areas of the economy. And this is what seems to happen to capitalism unless there is regulation to ensure that there is some equality in the distribution of income. I know it sounds like socialist politics. I'm not talking socialist politics. I'm looking at something that I think is realistic. And I'm saying that to say this, that I am more interested in the distribution of income across the various sectors, the population. And while I don't have figures, if you look at the amount of money, 32% of the budget being spent on poverty alleviation. And the fact that you had 22% below the poverty line in 2008, and we had a recession, and we had COVID, and we have another challenge. Large A large portion of our people are suffering today and might be suffering even more over the next few weeks or the next few months. In other words, the economy as it is a challenge for those of us who live in St. Kitts and Nevis. I want you to establish that up front because it must not appear that we are living on a bed of roses. We are not. It is a great challenge to governments. It's a great challenge to the people to make ends meet. Now, what types of activity do we have in St. Kitts and Nevis? And what types of activity can move the economy in a positive direction? I identify two areas that I want to focus on because I believe these two areas are what can have linkages backward and forward in terms of taking the economy in a forward movement. Tourism and geothermal energy. Some of you may be surprised that I mentioned geothermal energy, but I'm a strong believer in that project, and I highly recommend it to all of us in St. Kitts and Nevis. Some many years ago, we had a discussion on the island of Nevis about tourism and its linkages. And I wish to mention the Four Seasons. When the Four Seasons was about to be started, it was proposed that a structure be put in place for the farmers of Nevis to establish produce or crops 12 months per year. And that's the only way the Four Seasons would deal with us. So we're able to use our agricultural department and our the marketing division of the agriculture department to ensure that we met the demands of the Four Seasons. And it worked for a while. My understanding, and I say this with all respect, Danny, my understanding is that there came a time when the young men and women who were helping the farmers to produce their crops and to regulate the period of time when they should plant and reap started to compete with the farmers, and so the farmers lost interest. I don't know if that is true, but that is what I was told. I was Minister of Agriculture at the time it was introduced, and I was in politics over the period. I never tried to find out the truth, really, but that was what was said to me. Also, there was considerable improvement in the island ferry service. The American Eagle used to fly from Puerto Rico to St. Kitts and Nevis. And then you had forward linkages, like services that were provided by people like Sunshine, Lime, Weekend, and you had historical sites or historical areas that were set up. The Alexander Hamilton Museum, the Nelson Museum. And then there were those persons who provided tours. Now, those were linkages. But to me, the major problem in terms of linkages had to do with investment. The Four Seasons and other established tourism plans are generally owned by overseas investors. And when I use the term investor for me is anybody, a local person who has money and an overseas person who has money. I sometimes when we say investor, it's always foreign. But that is not necessarily so. An investor is somebody who is capable of doing things and have the financial capital to do them. What happened and what happens is that these operators tend to keep their financial resources abroad. They pay wages and maybe salaries, and they maintain the tourism plant. But if the plant makes money, those funds are not reinvested in our country because the people who own the plant don't live here, and the money goes back into United States of America or Canada or wherever those people live. That to me is a disadvantage in terms economically, in terms of future development. If you had local investors living here, probably you would have had the excess funds would have been used for further development. So that is a disadvantage. When I come to discussing government and what could be done, I will talk about that a bit. And then there are major concessions. And this happens throughout the Caribbean. Even the Jamaican plant, the Jamaican tourism plan, they do the same thing. Everybody does the same thing. 20-year concessions. And when you reach the 19th year, either you see a new set of investors or you approach to renew the plan for another 20 years. So if you look at all these hotels that are established in St. Kitts and Nevis, all of them have major concessions. What it means, if there's a profit, you hardly see any of that profit entering the coffers of government. Government taxes are minimal. That is a matter that I will discuss further. Then I come to geothermal. Geothermal is a resource that is based on Nevis. I don't intend to be political about it, but I would say that we need to give it the highest priority. And that it must be the centerpiece of our development. You have advantages. Once the plant is established, it lasts for 80 to 100 years. You have low electricity rates, so you will have immediate benefits for householders, businesses, etc., etc. You get credits for low carbon consumption, pollution, and you have the release of funds because of low electricity rates for householders to either save, invest, or get into whatever businesses they want to get into. So you see immediate benefits from having geothermal energy. There are other benefits as well that people can speak about. Now, recommendations. I believe that geothermal should not be a national resource. That may sound controversial, but going back to 1983, and I happen to have been there were certain arrangements that were made between St. Kitts and Nevis, which sort of indicated certain things that were in St. Kitts should remain there, and consequently certain things in Nevis should remain there. I sound very vague, so I'll give you an example. All lands in Nevis, in St. Kitts, were taken out of the equation. In other words, sharing. All lands in St. Kitts were taken out of the equation. In other words, what was said, the lands in St. Kitts, when they were sold or developed, Nevis must not benefit. Therefore, Mr. Daniel, who was then the Premier, says, in that case, all lands in Nevis will also be taken out of the equation. And he established the Housing and Land Corporation. That is how that came about. And I'm saying that following that line of argument, I propose that geothermal remain a Nevis resource. But, and there's a big but, it cannot be properly developed without the involvement of St. Kitts. The population of St. Kitts is much larger than the population of Nevis. Therefore, I will suggest that an arrangement be negotiated between the government of St. Kitts and the administration of Nevis. In other words, let's not have 75-25. It's not a 75-25% thing. And that is the kind of arrangement that we have in terms of other resources like the VAT and other stuff, like, or we had with the VAT and the CBI, etc., etc. I won't trouble that. That's okay. But with this resource on Nevis, negotiate an arrangement. We negotiate a percentage. And you have to, we as divisions have to accept that Kittitians will be consuming more than we are. That is one point. But the other point is over here. And constitutionally, it is over here. It is our thing. Put that aside. I don't know if you're aware, but Prime Minister Douglas and I had many discussions about geothermal. And the sticking point was who would control it. And I sense that Kittitians were afraid that if divisions control it, some crazy division might turn off the tap and leave St. Kitts in darkness. Now, it is a real thing. It is a real problem. If we know the history of the problems between St. Kitts and Nevis. So, in any arrangement, all those things should be taken into consideration. I am told that the government of Antigua, through its Prime Minister, has indicated an interest in geothermal. I think that's a good thing. It is a good thing because from what I do know of geothermal, my understanding that the resource has the potential not only to satisfy the needs of St. Kitts and Nevis, but also Antigua and maybe as far as the Netherlands Antilles. If Antigua is willing to come forward and Antigua is willing to invest in the project, knowing that in consuming electricity they'll be paying less than they're paying now, I think we should welcome them and work out an arrangement as well. I know it is easy for me to say this, but it will be more difficult to implement with the emotions that we sometimes have in these islands. The public should be encouraged to invest in the project as individuals. Also, it is my belief that people should be able to form a corporation, and that corporation should be able to invest as well. That goes for tourism as well. I think it has been done in Anguilla, where numbers of persons have gotten together and have put their money together and have bought a hotel or built hotels. Now the problem is this. The problem is this. In terms of marketing, in terms of penetrating markets abroad, etc., we do not have the means. We don't have the complexion. We don't have the economic standing in the eyes of maybe the United States or Europe or whatever. And I would suggest that local investors could form an alliance with foreign investors working together to develop a plant. Now that is more easily said than done. But I know that many persons who have come to these shows to propose investment, they borrow the money from local banks. They borrow the money from local institutions. And in some cases, they have departed with the institutions having serious problems. So you say one, you say two. Look for persons who can respect each other and work together. People from abroad with the know-how, the contacts, etc., with some money maybe, and local persons who might have minority shareholding, not majority shareholding, working together. In this way, some of that money from tourism can stay here and help to develop the country further. Certainly in terms of geothermal, I wouldn't want to see too much foreign investment in that. I don't want to see local investment, either through government or the persons, so that the benefits of geothermal can go redound to further development of St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, government should make lands available for development. And I will mention some names, but I don't mean any harm in mentioning these names. I'm not being political by it. Agriculture. There are two persons who I admire greatly who have shown how they can modernize agriculture on the island. Danny Arthurton and Mr. Truss. I'm sure there are others. I'm not going to try to exhaust that situation. I just mentioned these two. Danny's father was involved in a co-op over in Cades Bay. And Danny has been able to build on that. And through government assistance, establish a plant over there that is doing an excellent job in providing local produce. At the same time, there's a young man, Mr. Fleming, who was allowed to have a piece of land, and he's in the floral business and has a restaurant. On the other side of the road, you had the Williams people who had a hotel, which unfortunately closed down. And you had the Sea Bridge with government assistance and concessions was established. The Sea Bridge changed the whole nature of transportation between St. Kitts and Nevis. And government was involved in that. And then you had the Hartman project, which is incomplete. I had great hopes for that project, and I still have great hopes for that project. I believe that Gregory Hartman and Dean Daniel, as local investors, entrepreneurs, should be complimented. They may not be perfect, but they took a plunge. And we need to support them and find ways and means to ensure that they float, that they don't sink. You see, many years ago, we had a hotel by the name of Rest Haven, owned by a man by the name of Alman Nisbet. And we had another hotel by the name of Pinnis Beach International by a man named Mr. Nichols, both Nevisians. And to me, if they were successful, it would have been a great example to younger Nevisians coming forward to feel they could do it because it has been done already. So we need to have that type of situation where people could say, I want to be a Dean Daniel. I want to be a Greg Hartman. I want to be a Daniel Arthurton or whatever. And it happens that way. That is the nature of human beings. And so I recommend that government takes the lead in giving support in that direction. And as I speak about that, I must mention the establishment of the restaurants and eateries on the beach. That was a policy that was started under my administration. And this was the policy. The policy was based on the fact that most of the beaches had hotels on them or establishments on them, and local people seem, for some reason or the other, unwilling to bathe or use the beaches where those hotels are established. So I thought that that area, that 15-acre area down at Pinnis, should have been reserved for local businesses. And Sunshine was supported to go there. And Lime was supported to go there. And Weekend was supported to go there. And unfortunately, it seems like anybody goes there now. And I think it has lost the flavor, the ambience, the feel of a place where you could go and get local food. Because if you have tourism and you're eating this food that you eat in New York, or the food that you eat in England, what you come here for? You must come to taste the culture. When you go back home, you could talk about goat water and you could talk about whatever you want to talk about. That is how we should sell our tourism. Not that you only could go to the bananas because the bananas food is a particular way. And by the way, I love bananas. I'm a friend of Julia. And I go there pretty often. So don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying that the way it should be organized, that local people should participate in the tourism product. I feel that regardless of who is in government, regardless of the political party, that certain things should remain unchanged. That area, that 15 acres, should have continued to be reserved for Nevisians. I look at Fort Zante. I was there as Minister of Tourism when Kennedy developed Fort Zante. But when I go to the shops in Fort Zante, I don't find any kitchens selling. I don't find any kitchens selling. I don't see the benefits of kitchens. I see people from India. And I don't have a problem with India. I respect Indians and I have the greatest love for India. I've been there. And I understand that. But I have to say that if you're going to do a development, your people must be benefited. You talk about millions and millions of dollars that have been invested in Port Zante. And you go there, it's just like you're in some other country. That is what I'm talking about. We need to ensure that our people are involved. And the rule is left to government because of certain disadvantages. Our education system. We were taught that being a parson, a teacher, and a lawyer were what we should aspire to. We're in a tie. I know younger people don't remember. They're doing it, but they don't remember. But that's what we were taught. Parson, teacher, lawyer, civil servant. And we have it in our heads still. It's imprinted in our minds. So you find people running away from agriculture, local people. You find that there is no business acumen, no desire to get into the business. So that's why I'm glad for people like Danny and there, because he's an educated man. Or my friend there, Williams. Sorry, liable, but you know why you say Williams. When these kind of people come along, I'm very happy. Or the help me here, the guy there.
Gaston. Oh, Ray.
No, call his surname.
Chiverton.
No. Gaskell. That Gaskell is a university graduate, but he described himself as a fisherman. And these are the kinds of things that we need to have. And for me, an individual is an individual regardless of the complexion. I'm not interested in race. You who identify with the country and want to live here and develop here, you're an individual. That is how I see it. So, that I must just repeat that we must ensure that certain areas of the economy are reserved for locals. And regardless of whoever in government, that it should be. That's how it should be. Government need to establish quasi-government bodies. You have NEVLEC, and you have NASPA, and you have the Housing Corporation. But for the life of me, why do you have these bodies if they can't make a profit? Why do you have these bodies if they're not capable of borrowing money? Because they don't run properly. And I'm not getting at no government now, I'm dealing with the situation. NEVLEC should be profitable. NASPA can be profitable. And the Housing Corporation have no reason to be in the deficit. No absolute reason, because the lands that they get from government are free. The lands are free, and that should not happen. When we establish these quasi-government bodies, they should be run along commercial lines, along business lines. And they should be made accountable. If things are not going well, people should be fired or transferred. Targets should be set to ensure that they're profitable, that they can borrow money and take the strain off government.
Mr. Parry. 1 second. Hello, thank you. Let me do a quick intervention, and we can continue along the line which you're continuing. In the meantime, I'd just like to get Mr. Arthurton Daniel in, on the topic in which we're discussing, structural issues in government and changes. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, good evening to everyone, and I subscribe to the theme that has been placed before us this evening, and we spoke about a part to economic solvency, and about choosing development part that deliberate, not dazzled. Government, one of those pillars we spoke about is the embedded structural challenges. And as Mr. Parry spoke, I said to myself, we must rebuild the development state, not just the political state. Because that's a fundamental thing. Because the problem is that we have fragmented planning, we have weak projection, project execution, and we have politicized decision making. For example, we have stalled hospitals, delayed justice infrastructure, ad hoc investment. Political capital has been spent without building institutional capital. What should be our response? We need to create or empower a non-partisan economic planning and delivery unit within the system with clear performance indicators, like Mr. Parry spoke about, for these quasi-organizations, which report to the cabinet, but protected by statutes from day-to-day political interference. We must have something of a mandate of a 10 to 15-year development and spatial plan. If we had that, the issues related to the AI-generated destiny would not arise, because we would have been making sure that anyone that comes fall in one of the key pillars of our development strategy. It would have been debated publicly and adopted by the Assembly, against which all major products would have been put through that prism, destiny included. In order to arrive at this, though, we have to strengthen data accountability and policy coherence. We got to make sure that we are doing these things. It's evidence-based. Mr. Parry spoke about how much money is apportioned for each sector or subsector: health, agriculture, creatives, whatever. But we must make sure that these decisions are made right at this point in time without real robust data on productivity, on the sector linkages, or the social impacts. So we end up with an over-reliance on large, externally driven projects. And in order to access those, we have to give considerable concessions, as Mr. Parry spoke about, those 20-year concessions to hotels and other developers. What should be our response? I suggest an institutionalized annual State of the Economy and Society report, which is tabled in the National Assembly with the indications on the debt, on our productivity of our people, inequality issues, and sector performance. I think that we ought to introduce mandatory cost to benefit and risk assessments for all large projects, including their contingent liabilities on the federal government and or the environmental and social risks that we expose ourselves to. Since we're living in a time where we are moving in a digital age, we must digitize our delivery of government and private sector services, the finance especially, and the procurement system, so that it would not be bastardized by graft and favor. And it would reduce linkages, and it would increase transparency. So I would say, Glenn, that our key takeaway from some of the stuff Mr. Parry is saying is, before we talk about money, we must fix the machine that's spending.
Well said, Daniel. one of the things I find, there are a number of structural things I see in terms of how government functions, the bureaucracy function. First of all, I think the bureaucracy is too large, too huge as it relates to government workers. The government workers, the government employs almost 50%, I would dare say, of the total amount of people employed in this country, rivaling the private sector. And that is just a bit too much. Most first world countries, the numbers range from maybe 10 to 13% in terms of employment who function in government roles. The rest of the country is in the private sector. Here, I dare say it's 50% of the employment force. The government has almost maybe close to 1,500 workers, or 2,000 workers, somewhere in that region. That is awfully huge for a small 14,000 people, in terms of functionality and efficiency. It's layered, the public service is layered, it's stodgy, it's slow, it doesn't turn around well, and it's evident in the World Bank report that comes out annually. The World Bank report ranks us 139 country in efficiency, in terms of government efficiency and getting things done. I think that creates a paralysis in the system. For example, I give you a few examples that everybody experiences. You go to the post office to clear Amazon package. They'll tell you you have to download your invoice and bring it to them. Well, how does somebody over north of 50 years of age, in the society who is not, phone savvy, download an invoice? That makes no sense, but they have a bunch of young people who create these ideas and give them to the people who run these agencies, right? And all they end up doing is frustrating the public. So you have to run an older person who is not phone savvy, know how to download an Amazon invoice and print it out and all that sort of thing. When the onus should have been on the worker, because we're paying them, we're the taxpayers, and they're servicing the taxpayers. Everything seems to be upside down as far as I'm concerned, as it relates to government functionality in the civil service. That's an example. And you're talking about anybody over the age of 45 to 100 years of age. They probably position them, the amount of people in that bracket is probably 50% of the country. So you've marginalized people and you're frustrating people. I'll give you another example, right? Having to go to get a certificate, a birth death certificate. Go get a stamp down by the post office and bring it. Now, how does that make sense in terms of efficiency? You can very well go to the point of where you go and get the registry office. Why is it they can't sell you a stamp there? Why is there no cross in terms of cross management? It makes no sense. For a person who's been living abroad who don't know the functionality, you frustrate that person. Or they run around. The ease of doing business in this country, we're ranked 139 out of 190 countries in the world. 190 in the UN, United Nations. And St. Nevis is 139. We're at the bottom of the ladder as it relates to government functionality and efficiency. The bottom, we're side by side by Haiti in terms of government lacking good functionality. And we call ourselves a literate society of almost 99%. Makes no sense in my mind. I'll tell you another example. Let's assume you want to deploy a new business in the country. I'll give you a classic example, ATMs. You have an idea, it's easy done in big territories, New York, London, whatever. You come, you try to introduce, you get in ATMs and you try to bring them in, and you want to deploy. It's a bank. Yeah, it's like people are not, the frustration of getting business off the ground is difficult. The embedded. For example, I'll give you another example. To get credit in Nevis, or St. Nevis, we're ranked 165 in the world. And every country in the OECS is ranked 165 in the world to attain credit. To get property registration, we're ranked 185 next to 190 countries. How do you get to that point? These are the things, the stodginess of government that retards the flow of business. To get a bank account, let's say you're opening a business. You file for a business license, right? And to get a bank account, that may take you 8 weeks or 6 weeks. How does that happen? There are countries, and I'll turn it over. There are countries, for example, Singapore. One little country has no resources. None, absolutely none. All it is an island in the east, in Asia. And all it does, it was a country with swampland and mosquitoes. Up to today has to import its water. And Singapore is really ranked as number one, the number one country or number two country in ease doing business in the world. Now, you understand? So I'm saying to you guys, we can do better. I don't know what you all think.
Well, if I pick up there, Singapore, I think I am told that Singapore was based on
Trading.
No. Was based on the
Arthur Lewis.
Arthur Lewis
Model.
who is from St. Lucia.
Yep.
The model. And that is interesting and ironic that one of our own intellectuals and economists could do a model that has produced one of the most successful countries in the world, and we have not been able to do it here in the Caribbean. I wanted to touch on the fact that the same thing you're talking about, Glenn, about the poor services. The government office is not coordinated. There's no coordination. And sometimes it's like the person who's in charge is a little king in his empire or his kingdom, and he has to put you in your place. Sometimes you have people who go to the politicians and they get involved and they mess up. To me, we need to do several things. Training is absolutely important. Myself and Wendell Huggins were trained in England. We were the only two who had that training, postgraduate training. People just become permanent secretaries, but they're not trained to be permanent secretaries. They're not trained to give service. They're not trained to understand the government policies. There's no clear policy for civil servants to follow. And that to me is the most important thing. I don't know what the policy of the government. I can't tell you. Beg pardon?
Mr. Arthurton might be able to tell us if he can finish his presentation.
The policies of the government?
If he can finish his presentation, I'm just...
Oh. Well, let me just finish what I'm saying and he can cut in. Okay,
No problem, Mr. Parry.
You need to have a one-stop situation whereby an investor can go to one office, and that person is helped through the various offices to get quick service. But everybody must be singing from the same hymn book.
Yes.
Everybody must understand that we want development. Everybody must understand what the priorities are. And everybody must feel safe that government ministers are not going to interfere. That is absolutely necessary. It can be done. People have done it elsewhere. We have to do it. So we just have to remove all those blockades, all those fiefdom mentality, all the ignorance where people are in charge but don't know what to do. And that can help that situation there. To me, that's the most important part of ensuring that projects go smoothly through to completion. Danny?
Yeah, I think that's a very important chapter for me there. I totally agree with you. That structure that we have where, well, two things. First, the ease of doing business, it had to be discarded as a means of assessing countries after about 2019, because it was found that the model size was 1 million persons. And all of the things that they were asking persons who were outside of the system to assess the system. The ease of doing business spoke to 11 areas. How easy it is to come into a country, set up a business, recruit people, employ people, set up board structures, governance issues, how easy it is to transfer money, set up bank accounts, credit relations, and foreclosure, and how easy it is to wind down and export and send your money back to the source from which the direct foreign investment may have come. They have removed that model from the World Bank system. It was it found the people from the China and some of the other BRICS countries found that this was punitive, and it glorified just a few countries. One of the countries that came to the top, of course, was Singapore, Venezuela, and New Zealand, and some other places. And those parameters, the ease of doing business, you must understand that a place like Singapore, what Lee Kuan Yew did with the Sir Arthur Lewis model was to take a country the size of St. Lucia with Manhattan on it, impressed upon it, and has just changed everything. What it does, it was a trading center where most of the trade, 50% of the trade, and it was made a financial center and a transshipment port. And so what Singapore is known for, its systems, its efficiency systems. So for example, Changi International Airport is one of the most efficient system in the world. And so they use that system across the world to show people how to run airports, so that an aircraft lands and within 14 minutes, the people disembark and are totally off. And when you get into the airport, I mean, you can get into the aircraft in a very short period of time. So, and then even you have 100% radio assessment of 40-foot containers. So those are the kinds of things that you can get in a country where you have digital government systems for you. So you can be in one part of, and that was taken from places like the islands in the West Africa there, where you can be in one place and you can take out a book in one place and you put it back in another place, but because it's interrelated by the electronic system, it's called electronic governance system. But I just wanted to look at one of the issues that you spoke about in terms of enhancing the fiscal models for solvency, not survival. Because I think what we find ourselves is that our system as it is right now, that's why mendicancy has taken over, is because it's mainly geared for mere survival, but it should be for solvency. And we should move from just consumption-driven deficits to investment-led discipline, because we have not been teaching our people about investment. And so what we do, we have that recurrent expenditure, especially wages and transfers, and crowd out capital investment, while deficits are normalized and rolled over. We have to teach our people how to understand investment. They must understand working with money from a very early age. So we must adopt a simple financial rule on the wage bill as a share of recurrent expenditure or medium-term deficit and debt targets. There's a fiscal rule that's established by the central bank that says that you should not have more than a 60% debt to your GDP ratio. Those things should be codified, and so that puts that level of discipline. When I hear the back and forth in the in the media and in our local system and find that you can have 300% overreach by persons with budget lines and the what you call the audit department keep saying that for a 6-7 year period. We have to do that. We must adopt simple fiscal rules and cap the wage bill so that we can understand, and we must ring fence capital spending. You cannot tell me that for 7-8 years you've exceeded $17-20 million in a project that you had, which had a planning horizon of 5 to 7 years, and you're gone another 7 or 8 years beyond that. That is not problem. And you must publish medium-term fiscal framework so that the citizens can understand exactly, and so that investors, when they come, they can understand that you're on a path from deficit to positive balances. So I'll go back to you.
You know, I frankly think in terms of the fiscal matters, I think we need to begin to look at a tax policy. I think the tax policy in which we adopted under the PAM administration is regressive at best. I think when we begin, it's consumer driven. Everything, we raise our taxes through the ports for the most part. It's an old model that was retired in the United States in around 1913. That was the Hamiltonian way of raising money through tariffs. That is done with. I think we have to begin to look for the World Bank. The IMF actually has been telling us we'll have to go to a more income tax model. And I think a targeted income tax model, government can begin to raise more revenues. It can be more targeted, more structured. In addition to that, you can forecast better with a progressive system, an income tax system. You can forecast buying patterns, employment patterns. You can issues such as quality of life issues. All of these can be predicted easier. The way we are right now, you can't even predict your forecast, where you should be putting your emphasis.
But it can only be done if you have a data collection system. It must be evidence-based. Whatever you're suggesting there, it is evidence-based. If it is not evidence-based, it can't happen. Yes. And what the Simmons government did with the removal of personal income tax is not, you see, they had an option. There was an alternative. They removed one thing to increase consumer spending, but what they actually did is that there was things like the CBI, which enabled them, which if it was properly addressed, would have created the ring fence in order to be able to finance what would have come there. What we have right now is the Bretton Woods organizations are punishing the organization. The pro-capitalist system speaks to that in a negative way. But, I mean, it depends on your ideological position. You may not totally agree because you may have had it well thought out. A matter of fact, I would prefer to get, right now, I would like to even get into something more specific and deal with the two practical things. The practicality of a destiny which we have been exposed to, and the practicality of the Four Seasons Resort which we have been exposed to. And the reason why I speak to those two things in terms of their practicality is that one of them is an experiment to be tried, and the other one is a tried experiment which has shown that the capitalist has been able to thrive and strive once he put his direct foreign investment in, as against the destiny model where someone is trying to direct themselves here to get our investment to a foreign place. So there are some different things that are happening, and we must say that. The other thing is that you have an experiment that has worked for 35 years, that very rich people have come and not decide to change the country to a country of their own likeness, but to live in the country and to harmonize with the people. I'm speaking about the ilk of Mr. Anderson. Anderson came here and he went up to Jessup and things like that and provided employment.
And Knudsen.
Ted Knudsen, you had people like Bob Griffith, who was one of the founding members of the of Bank of Nevis. You had people like Miss Swift. You had people like Mr. Horner. You had people like Gaskell. They had people like Vicky Knorr. You had people like Parry. These are people who came put their money into this country. You had people like Ed Skull, who met somebody who had a deformity, and them and their doctors take that division out and fix that situation so that the people of Nevis, so they can generate goodwill. They have people who are now coming as part of Destiny that are telling you that they were here during COVID and their eyes were closed, but they're now coming back after COVID to open up their pockets to, resources that have been pulled from our people over there. I speak to, those are the kinds of things that I would really want to, because, we can come back next time and have a talk about classical economics and those kind of things. But right now, what's on our doorstep, what is happening is that rising tide lifts all ship. And you see when the tide goes out, you see all who bathe in naked.
Could I continue, Danny? I just want to comment on the idea of introducing consumption tax, and I want to talk about Destiny. It's going to take a brave politician to introduce personal income tax. You believe me, no government in St. Kitts and Nevis is going to do it. So we have to find means.
Well, that's why the Social Security keep going up. And what you call it, the VAT. VAT is actually a reintroduction.
There's personal income tax,
Huh?
Personal income tax is right here in the St. Kitts and Nevis, but it's very subtle. It's hidden.
Well, VAT is one of them.
It's hidden. So to Destiny, I try to avoid Destiny tonight because I have never been able to see Destiny as a development.
Okay.
I have never been able to compare Destiny to any form of development of St. Kitts and Nevis. For me, Destiny has the shape of a colony.
Enclave.
A settlement.
Yeah.
A settlement. And what does a settlement do? And it's an enclave. Yeah. But what a settlement does, you're bringing people to develop whatever you want to develop, and you export. You're not part of the economy. Even if you're included in the GDP, that is meaningless. That is a waste of time. If you are going to have your own government, if you are going to control the movement of people in and out, if you are going to be bringing billionaires and multi-millionaires, you are asking for the destruction of the remaining part of the country. Danny, I support you on the matter of the names. You could do Gaskells, etc. Nevis developed with these people, we didn't have any hotels as such.
Right.
They came from Canada and they came from England. And those people fitted into society. I went to grammar school because Peggy Willis and her husband helped me with a scholarship.
Okay.
That's how I got to grammar school.
Bob Gordon helped me to go to America to study.
I got help in Barbados because of the same Bob Willis and Peggy again.
Right.
So I have no problem with those people. They have done a lot for this country, and they have taken the country down a particular positive road. They're not totally flawless, but nobody is totally flawless. No. Destiny now, and you have to understand the mentality of billionaires. People don't become billionaires by being honest, They don't become billionaires by following the straight and narrow road. They break deals. They work deals. They they become part of the government structure, and hand come and hand go. It's happening in America today. If you really want to see how it goes, it's happening there. And they don't become rich by helping you on your feet. Dubai, Do you know what happens to the workers of Dubai? They're virtually semi-slaves. Dubai is for who come in and go out. So if we want a Dubai in Nevis, would we benefit? Would we be a part of that Dubai? Or we'll be down there working day and night on low wages? You think that a multi-billionaire is going to put up with a fellow with his backhoe working the way they work here? When we were developing the Four Seasons, you know what we had to do? We had to bring in people from Trinidad to make sure we kept the deadline because divisions just could not keep that pace. I am not saying that should be the same. Change should come.
Yes.
People should be taught how to produce, how to improve their productivity. But it will be a disaster, that situation over there. It will be a disaster for Nevis, and it will be a disaster for St.
But
Kitts.
just imagine Four Seasons has a footprint of 500 acres. Over there got 2,400, 5 times the size.
This is the comparison. I don't even know why people talk about
And
Four
we're talking
Seasons.
about the amount of workers you had to bring in for Four Seasons.
Yeah.
Wrap your mind around what's going to happen there in terms of the amount of workers. Whether you're bringing them from Sri Lanka or wherever they bring them from. Just like Dubai, because they talk about Dubai. So if they want to create a Monaco Dubai, it's all slave labor. And the complaints internationally has been that the people here serve in slave labor. So I don't know if that's what we want here. Frankly, it's not something I wish for.
But the destiny is not a development. It is not a development. There is nothing economic about it in terms of development. You have a group of people who want whatever the devil they want to come here and establish themselves in an enclave. And you believe me, once they get settled, some of them will begin to move out and take over. And this is what expats understand them, you know, because they have to live with them in America. They know who these people are. We better follow the expats in the position that they're taking in Nevis.
For example, one of the things that I think is fundamental to what we are trying to speak to here, I guess one of the context is that we are told, you people who call yourself social construct, you are the, you know, what is your alternative? We say, yes, we have an alternative. That's the point, I think, that the people with the social construct, you know, civil society, we are being civil about this matter. And we are taking society, the depth and the width of this thing. And so we are saying the four corners of this discussion should point to that. We should see whatever development model or models that are being proposed, that they seek to upgrade standards. If you ask me, have I seen that with Four Seasons? I'll say sure. What I have seen with Four Seasons is that Four Seasons has become an accelerator, an incubator, and a generator. And if you ask me, give me an example, I would say Stedboy Wilkinson. He used to work at Four Seasons. Now he's a manager of a company. I would say Mr. Tyson, because he now has the water bottling plant, and you know he directly integrates that. I would say the Griffin family, the massaging. I would say all of the people who used to work on the Four Seasons boats who now have the water taxis. Am I speaking to something practical? Am I giving you evidence-based? That's what I think. If I'm going to tell you something, you ask me, what is my option? I'm saying my option is that whatever you bring, it must upgrade standards. I say it must expand local supply chain. None of those things that they're telling me any way of expanding a local supply chain. What is a supply chain? A supply chain is that collective of individuals that produce the first matter, the food, you know, the basic things that get sent to be consumed into your entity. And what I'm saying is that likely from the AI generated thing that I saw for over on the other place? No. I do not see a localized supply chain which has a basis in agriculture, in fisheries, in creative industries, in professional services. I'm seeing something where someone is going to be bringing a lot of those people from outside to satisfy their needs. You understand? And am I seeing somebody who's seeing a situation that's going to promote Nevis as a high value, low density, climate smart destination? No. I'm seeing somebody who wants to show me a high density, small place that I don't know what their sensitivity is to the ecosystem that they have. They put a lot of persons who are prominent persons in those disciplines and, big firms that have dealt with architectural products. But is that what we are trying to say and do in this place, this little place, this federation? Are we trying to invest in skills and certification for our people? Are we seeing anything about the quality of life indicators? Are we looking for wellness or stress-filled people if you're under all these pressures? I think, Mr. Chair, moderator, I am asking myself those questions. It's a problem when you and your advisor is one and the same person, because that means you're talking to yourself. And I do not want to be in a place where I'm like that. I think Nivisions need to get to a place where we can capture value jobs, not just low wage jobs. And whatever we seek to provide as an alternative, it must be Nevis, homegrown, and diaspora. We do not just need the people from the diaspora 5 minutes every 5 years to vote for us, drink some liquor, eat some chicken, and go back. We need to have a registry of all the skills and competencies of our people, so that if you decide that you ask for a request for proposal, you want to build a hospital, you have persons in Maryland, you have persons in England, you have persons in Spain, those in Cuba, whatever, they can come together and say, listen, let's form a little consortium. Let's put this thing together and present something for Nevis so we can have a state-of-the-art hospital. We're not going to break down anything, and we're not going to build up anything and paint the outside. We want to make sure that whatever it is, it's fully integrated with the scenery, with the contour of the land, and what we have here. I'm not here to talk to you and tell you how much I love Nevis. I'm here to say to you, look at me. Do I lead by example? You answer that question. If I have to tell you I'm the boss, something is wrong.
If I may just want to mention, simple things for Nivisions to look at, red flags.
Okay.
$100 a day, $100 a month. What is it a month? Yeah, $100 a month. Would any honest investor who has any respect for Nivisions offer them that kind of money? What does it tell you about their thinking of us? That's a serious red flag. If that's what they think of us, we're in serious trouble. Red flag. The kind of discussions they have, very condescending. We're gonna offer you, we're gonna give you a Dubai. Get a few persons, put some money in their pockets, and get them to say how nice the investment is gonna be like. Red flag. You see Four Seasons? I have had experience with people. I'm going to finish now, Danny, so you can continue.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I have had experiences with investors. And between 1984 and 1987, all kinds of people came to Nevis with all kinds of plans. Sometimes when you read the plans, they're not even properly written. And I had to look at them and I had to tell Mr. Donald, don't bother with these people. And then the Four Seasons came. A gentleman, Mr. Bouvale, and a gentleman, Mr. Raspo. And they sat in my office and they were so humble. And I spoke to them and they went away and they came back. And they met with me a second time. And I went inside, I opened the door to Mr. Donald. I said, Mr. Donald, you have to meet with these men. I can't go any further. And Mr. Donald said to me, you think they have money? I said, I don't know, but they sound very serious to me. We need to deal with them. In other words, those who behave like they have money, sometimes they don't have any. And those who have money and behave like they have money, you better watch out. But these two guys came very simply and kept on developing their project, and you could see that they were representing people who were serious and wanted to do investment. So I just wanted to make that brief
But
intervention. Chair?
you see, what you're saying is that that's some level of due diligence.
Right.
And what you did there, it's the first step to cleaning the fence to make sure that the people that you expose your people to don't come and hoodwink them and keep them in any place, put down their phones that they cannot talk or anything like that. But I want to say one thing in terms of funding, because the question has been, okay, so what is your alternative? Well, we have an alternative. We, civil society, have an alternative. We say that the collective is us. And we say that we must build a blended financial stock of public, private, and diaspora. I believe that everything that they're telling us can be done with a blended financial stock of funds from homegrown and or diaspora. I believe that the heavy reliance on traditional debt and central government guarantees has limited fiscal space, but it also has increased fiscal vulnerability. What is our response? We are saying we need to find some way of getting this high cost debt for longer term or lower cost instruments. And we have to get some climate linked or resilience bonds. I believe if you were to go to the people of Nevis today and say to them that instead of trying to carry a millstone around your neck with NEVLEC and the water department and all that sort of thing and cut off people's water and then charge them $150 to reconnect. You understand? Those are punitive things. Those are like taxes. Or to cut off your electricity and cause you $100 when you already had hardships before. It's like charging you a punitive interest rate to get an extension of your loan. So what we're saying is that what we need to find is some way of making sure that take that burden off the government and put the pride of running these things in the hands of us, the people, by enabling us to privatize 50-50, 51-49, so that government can has its place as an enabler, as a regulator, as an overseer, as an auditor, but that the mental fortitude of our people can come through in innovation and in the protection of our resource for our next generation, those yet unborn. That must be the thinking. If we are not doing that, I am saying us as a social construct, us as a civil society will be uncivil, not only to ourselves, but to the next generation that is coming. I think the other thing that we need to do is to get some of our people. You know how many people I think in America right now who have the 401k, and with the kind of things that's happening up there, they would like to take out 50% of that and send it here to Nevis, that it can be raising some interest for them and so forth. You know, yes, I think that, and with some of the things that I hear the people in England saying, and so because you're asking for reparations, that we're not going to give you this thing. I wouldn't worry myself about that. Let me tell you, nobody can deport me from here. You come home and you take the money because up there, you are the one who went there and helped them develop that country. And now, for some reason, they have an alternative pool of reserve workers that they can use to get rid of you. I would say, sure, but I take back my money as well. Send home the money, start selling out your properties there, send in your money to Nevis, invest it in infrastructure, and let children in school be able to buy shares, like in Taiwan. So that you develop that discipline in your people. So by the time you're 18 years of age, most of you have wealth accumulated, not only for yourself, but your next generation. That is what I think that we need to see. We also need to develop project specific, some special purpose vehicles. Because let me tell you, what we have now, you have $600 million of debt. And with that $600 million of debt, if you go to another bank, your government change and the next person go, they're gonna say, yo, you got $600 million worth of debt. You have to have at least $1.2 billion worth of development to show them that you have enough money coming in addition to the debt servicing that you're doing right now, to give yourself relief. Because if you cannot come to the person and tell them how you are going to provide relief for your people, it means that you're going to increase the money on the electricity department. You're going to increase the water bill. You're going to increase those things. And the only way you can do without doing that is if you create a situation like Mr. Parry and those people did in that time, where you ended up having 89 people from Trinidad staying down in the West Haven Hotel from Trinidad, because we just had, we had full employment in Nevis came in 1991, where anyone, according to classical economics, who wanted a job, sought for a job, could get a job. You had people leaving at 3 o'clock, the government jobs, and went down to Four Seasons and worked from 3 till 11 in the night, and were able to have 2 streams of income coming. I don't want to hold everything. You go ahead.
One of the things, and all of that I think is really good, but I like to get more on the micro level in the sense of moving people forward and trying to see how we can move the ordinary person forward. The economic squeeze as it is right now is becoming more and more tight as it relates to the fuel crisis as we're going through right now, and inflation is creeping up. Central Bank just released a report early this month on the 4th, I think, of April, where they said they had $28 billion in deposits around the OECS. $28 billion.
Yeah, but no
And
problem.
1 second. And not only that they had 20, but they only had 16 billion in loans at this moment. And they're trying to advocate to all their banks, their corresponding banks within the OECS, and trying to find a way how they can deploy this money out, how they can get this money out, the bottleneck in the system, to people who are entrepreneurs and people who want to do business and make capital more accessible. I do believe that is the way forward, because I do believe the future lies in this country, lies in local entrepreneurship, of course, partnering with foreigners, if you know, with that can be the case. That is very important. And the accessing the bank. So one of the things they're trying to do, from what we're gathering, is they're trying to change the matrix, the loan matrix, and how, you know, the stodgy way, or the way in which, the classic way in which they lend, bankers are lending in the region. They're trying to advocate a new way forward over the next 5 years in terms of releasing all the funds in the market. So, I mean, yes, on the macro level, that, you know, we can speak of that, but I want to see ordinary folks, and we have a lot of ordinary folks who are well collateralized, meaning they have homes who are paid up, they have properties who are paid up. Nevisians have the most high, it probably has the highest amount of lands per capita. Ownership, private ownership there is, which can be leveraged in terms of getting money from, you know, out. So, you know, to get money out, to get people to invest in their dreams and to create opportunities, I think that's the way forward.
Then let me tell you, one of the things that we have to understand about money go behind ideas, but you must bring a good idea. And when you take it to the bank, it must be bankable. Because if you go to the bank and you have $600 million worth of debt like you right now, and you decide to use one of your local bank as your credit card, that doesn't put you in a better position. What needs to happen is that you must show there is the ability to generate income, not for the top people who, when they get the money, that money is going to just accumulate. You need to have a wider dispersion, more options down here. It has, first you must educate people, because nobody in Nevis is going to just go collateralize their property to take a loan. And you must remember, we have a lot of good examples to be careful with. You remember the indexing of those things, the 2007 and 2008 financial crisis. You remember who suffered the most? A lot of people who are minorities. They were told that they had the ability to borrow this amount of money and that sort of thing, and they had this amount of equity and that sort of thing. We do not want that kind of thing. We want people to be aware and then to be properly educated so that they can understand investing. And so I think, Glenn, that there's a process that needs to happen right now. The paradigm must shift, that we have dual vet education so that people are not only trained in getting 11 and 12 ones, but also so that they can have skilled people who can fix a pipe, can weld with Naya, can do with Marcel as well, and can do plumbing with other people like my brothers and them. We need different skill sets across the whole continuum, and you need a public education.
But then that's gonna take time.
But everything takes time. It's
I
9 months
know,
to take a child to born.
I'm not saying it to say that you're wrong.
No.
Just because I understand your thinking.
Yeah.
In fact.
But we have to start thinking like that, Mr. Parry.
Oh yes. And the problem is a generational thing. Because you have to start right down by kindergarten. It's gonna be so difficult to teach a sick farmer to make a change.
Yeah.
It's like indoctrinating people.
Well, fix your Iberia and say inculcate. You remember when you were teaching me? You were teaching me history. Yes. When he had it when he brought the new education system. So the word that was used throughout that thing was inculcate.
Indoctrination.
So I'm not gonna say that, but I'm glad you say it. But the thing about it is that in every place you need to get your people to have a paradigm shift in the mind. It is the mindset. And that is what the governor of the central bank said. The governance of the central bank, remember, he had 4 parts. One part is that it's the big push, which says that it's double the amount of jobs. How are we going to double the amount of jobs? By bringing all people from outside? No, he's talking about upskilling and he's talking about training. Sorry.
All right, guys, we're going to open up the floor. Naya, we're going to open up the floor to everybody. The mics are there.
We're gonna go now.
When you're finishing that, what time you finishing?
Hello. Oh, good night once again. I guess we have heard a lot from the panelists. I suppose they cover a very wide range of issues, and I suppose it's time now to hear from the people on the floor. I suppose there would be some questions, and the panelists are there to answer these questions. We can ask questions about ideas put forward in terms of governance, in terms of efficiency in government. You can ask questions about tourism. You can ask questions about agriculture, about creative investments as it relates to things like the geothermal and partnership with, as Mr. Parry proposed, neighboring islands, neighboring countries such as Antigua. And so the mic is for anyone at this point in time who wants to ask a question.
Thank you very much. My question is directed to Mr. Parry. I followed your argument very closely about geothermal. That is to say that since it's a resource based in Nevis, it should be developed and managed in Nevis. My question is, from your perspective, what has been some of the drawbacks that has caused it to remain stillborn up to now? In a closely related matter, you mentioned 2 entities, both in the hotel industry, both of which appear not to have survived beyond the lifespan of their pioneers. So I ask the same question from your perspective. What might be some of the drawbacks that has led to some of these failures?
Okay. Yes, geothermal. First of all, one of the major problems was political. When we got involved with geothermal between 2008 and 2013, we met considerable resistance. We had the West Indies Company driven by a gentleman, a friend of Mr. Isaac, and they were moving very quickly. And it seemed to alarm certain people. And so a letter was written to the embassy in Barbados. Letters were written to the House of Representatives in the USA, based on the fact that we had clashed with the gentleman who owned cable TV. The gentleman had increased the rates immediately after Omar without any discussion with us. And we felt, and I certainly felt, that he was out of line, and I knew him very well. I knew him very well because I was there when he came with this proposal and he accepted it. And so we said, no, you will not increase the rates. And we clashed to the point where we said, okay, we will buy you out. We'll take over your property and pay your market price, rather than for you to be there bullying the people of Nevis like that. And the opposition took that information to the House of Representatives in America because we were borrowing money from the Import-Export Bank, and said that the government in Nevis is trying to destroy this American investor and at the same time trying to borrow money from the Import Investment Bank, from the Exim Bank. I had to go all the way to Washington to explain why we were doing it. And then we had passed the appropriation bill in Parliament. We had to go back to Parliament and cancel it because the embassy in Barbados demanded that we cancel it. The interesting thing is, the gentleman said to me, we understand your problem. We know that the man is wrong, but he's an American. So you have to abandon that bill. And we did. But that led to certain things slowing down. And by the time we began to focus again, we were out of government. So that was the initial problem. There was a problem as well with the original investor, that he seemed to have had some difficulty with capital. So some other Americans had come in, and we were dealing with them at the particular time that we lost the government. So that is how it happened with us. Now, with the other government, when they came in, I can't give you details. I don't have specifics, and I'm not going to talk about things I don't know. But they seem to have encountered problems, and I don't know what the problems were that they encountered. The situation reached a point where obviously the federal government was brought into play to help with the development of geothermal. But when I listen to statements coming from the federal government, it almost seems as if they are saying that they're taking it over. And I'm saying they should not take it over. I outlined the fears already. I'm not going to go through that again. Beg pardon?
They were given geothermal.
Yeah.
They're not taking it over.
Okay, all right. Okay, I stand corrected. All I'm saying is this, that we need to work out an arrangement because it's mutually beneficial to both St. Kitts and Nevis. We in Nevis must not be selfish. We must not run away from the fact that we need St. Kitts, and St. Kitts need to work with us and get rid of some of the suspicions that we might turn off the tap or whatever. And let us establish something that is workable to the mutual benefit of the people of St. Kitts and the people of Nevis. That is the position that I hold. Mind you, it's only my position. And the second thing, the two hotels, and Rest Haven and Pennis. What happened with Rest Haven is that they pushed on the kitchen, and that killed the whole business. When they were hit by Hurricane Hugo, but they had many rooms there that could have been used, but they pushed on the kitchen. That's the first thing they did, and that killed the whole project. Yeah, in terms of pennies, I'm not sure.
The daughter had a son she would have continued, but she got sick. And then the only other person who could have carried on would have been her son. And he has gone abroad. He never came back to do that. So this is a very important lesson to learn. That's a lesson that we should take into account. That, I mean, there ought to be some kind of business continuity planning, which is something that I do not think very often persons think. It's just like very often people don't make a will. And so there's absolute confusion in their family. So business continuity planning enables people to suggest some options, whether they're there or not, as to how things will continue. And this is something that has to become a part of our teaching and our learning.
Exactly, teaching. Because too many of us, business people, don't want our children to follow in our footsteps, or don't encourage them to follow in our footsteps. We want them to become engineers and whatever. You had Chapman, you had Brand, you had Williams, you had Nisbets, you had Decent. All these are people who had starts in Nevis, and their children should have been able to elevate from that position. But a lot of it has not happened.
Laureate is there.
Huh?
Laureate there.
No, I'm not saying all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just making the case for Laureate there.
Mr. Terrell?
I have two concerns. Government efficiency. Somebody alluded to that earlier. You go to the police station to get a police record. You say you got to get a stamp, you got to walk back up to the post office. Or you go to any government office where you need a stamp. In the electronic age, couldn't that process be centralized? And every department that requires a stamp could go on a keyboard or a mouse and, collect the stamp duty. That's all, government efficiency. There's another issue that I think it was a Parry's idea. Oh, many of our government offices that collect payments do not accept credit cards in 2026. To me, it's the most efficient way of collecting money. Or could you write a check? Who wants to write a check in this stage when you have to do a bank reconciliation at the end of the month and find out which checks are still outstanding? Okay? With a credit card, your money is sure. It goes from your account to the other person's account. You don't need to be running around with the whole paperwork and cancel checks, all this kind of stuff. So, going forward, right? Mr. Parry, what advice would you give a new government to overcome these shortcomings?
Yeah, my thinking on that is, I understand what you're saying, but I have heard persons who you go and they have it, no credit cards accepted. And then you go to the person and you say to them, why? And they said, well, I'm going to have to pay the 4%. So I said, listen, that is why and I'm going to make a plug here, a bold plug. I have this program, Strategies for Business Success, where I tell the people how they're supposed to do things. Do your costing. Then with your costing, you do a pricing so that it includes that 4%. So when you give somebody your price, that credit card swipe is also included in that. And so I shamelessly tell you that, you probably need to listen to the kind of things that I have to say. Huh?
That should not happen. That 4%, right, is to enable the merchant, the business person, to generate more business. Because the more people using credit card, the more business you will get. If I don't have cash, I will have to go away from your business.
Right.
If I don't have my checkbook, I will have to go away. But if I can just pull a card and, the transaction is done, chances are it's something that I fancy at the moment, but I don't really need. But by pulling the card, I want it and I'm gone. And if I had to get the cash, it means going back to the bank, get the cash, or I don't have the checkbook or whatever.
Safety issues.
I am speaking now for the consumer. The businesses should not pass on that 4% to. The businesses should not pass on the 4% to the consumer. It is wrong.
Well, you see, as a student of economics, there's no free lunch. And since I know that at some point, somebody going to have to pay for that. And what I'm saying is that you ought to have it so nicely dealt with, you understand, that it becomes a part of your costing and pricing system so that it is seamless. That is just my thinking. But I have infinite ignorance and I have finite knowledge.
Mr. Manis?
Hello. Hi, good evening. Just a comment on the last matter discussed before I asked my question. I know that the discussion was on credit cards, used locally, I assume. But don't we use debit cards more frequently locally? The thought is that credit card, lots of people don't pay their credit cards. When you swipe a debit card, you pay immediately because the money comes off your bank account. So I couldn't understand the focus on credit cards. There's a biggest, You mean debit cards? No, not cards, debit cards.
It's convenience.
Oh, so you said credit cards. Okay, electronic transfer. Okay, correction. My real question is to Mr. Parry, because I had in mind to ask a similar question about geothermal. I thought, I've heard the discussion on local radio that the control over the geothermal product has been given to the federal government. And that seems to be an issue. I'm somewhat not too clear in my mind about the status quo. I thought that the reason why it shifted to syndicates was the inability. Beg pardon?
There's an echo. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
In my throat, I don't know. Was the difficulty of the Nevis Island government to raise the necessary capital to take geothermal forward. Because investors or lenders are not willing to lend to the NIA, it not being a sovereign entity. And they prefer to lend to the federal government, a country, the head of country. That was not the reason?
That was not the initial reason. Exactly as I outlined it is what happened.
But isn't that part of the equation generally?
What?
That people don't...
No. The investor, the original investor, was providing his own capital. When the House of Representatives and the embassy in Barbados came into the picture, that had nothing to do with the Nevis government not being able to raise any capital. What I explained earlier is exactly what happened. Because as I said to you, I had to go in the House of Assembly and embarrass myself because we passed a law to expropriate the cable. And the embassy in Barbados said, look, you better go in the House and withdraw that bill. Not withdraw. You had to cancel it completely because it was passed. And when I went to Washington, I actually met with somebody, a gentleman who was Mrs. Clinton's I think he was a point man. He was a very important fellow. And they said to me, man, it's your own opposition who sent the letter to the House of Representatives why you can't get the money. Had nothing to do with St. Kitts. Nothing to do with St. Kitts. So I didn't even want the question to be asked because I didn't want to say it. But the question was asked and I had to tell the truth. I could go further and say that one of the opposition said you can't let concrete harden because when concrete harden, you can't dig it up easily. So don't doubt me. I know what I'm saying.
I know that happened in that specific case, but I'm speaking generally. For example, in the present situation, is it that the NIA has difficulty on their own?
That happened in other situations, and it happened more frequently after the debt piled up. I think part of the problem was the fact that the NIA was running a huge deficit, and there was some doubt as to whether the NIA could pay its bills, or over term can pay its bills, could manage and pay its bills. So people wanted a federal guarantee. That happened, yes, but that it was not. That's not relevant to geothermal in the first instance.
So you're saying that it would have been good for the NIA now to do the loan itself and get a guarantee from the federal government, as opposed to allowing the federal government to take over the whole operation.
That is not what happened, you know. What happened is that they obviously abandoned, having made several mistakes, having gotten into trouble with some of the drill holes and so on. Because I think they brought some people here from Dominica and did a hole that didn't make any sense and so on. And having put together a local consortium that didn't know what they were doing and so on, they threw their hands up. That's basically, Lyra is right, you know. They threw their hands up and said, look, we're having difficulty in doing this thing. It was said that geothermal is not going to happen in our lifetime or whatever. And the federal government realized the importance of geothermal and ran with it. And being the federal government and having contacts in the Middle East and so on, they were able to get some funds, and they were able to get the central bank, the Caribbean Central Development Bank to help them as well. So you know, tonight I'm here as a non-political figure, and I don't want to talk politics. But Mr. Manners, you should have known. I'm sorry to tell you so. You should have known. He's my friend. We went to college together.
Should have known what?
You should have known what happened.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Next, Mike, go ahead.
Manners. Daniel, Manners should have been paying attention. You know what happened, right?
So investment is a component of the when we talk about investment in Nevis, we tend to only focus on foreign investment. But then when I look at the banks, I see a lot of capital just sitting in deposits, and then you look at the loan to deposit ratio is sometimes less than 50%. So we have a central banker here and a former premier. I know the government is a big shareholder in the local banks. I guess I'm curious, what's the rationale behind the banks being so conservative in their lending? And, you know, what's the impact in terms of just slowing growth basically in the country?
Okay, what I would say to you, the aggregate function is consumption plus investment plus government spending plus export minus import. That's the aggregate function. That's a classic economic function. What you did point to is the fact that investment, if investment is done by government, that is like crowding out private investment. Because, so what needs to happen is for there to be a balancing. Because what is happening is that there is a heavy, that's the reason why I tried to change that aggregate function by saying that maybe what government need to do is to shed some of the load of the water department, the electricity department, and all those things. Because it's the gross consumption, a significant part of the consumption is government itself. A lot of the electricity that is used by the electricity department is government use and not paying for. You understand? A lot of the water is government use and not paying for. If government had that aggregate function so organized so that the investment was heavily on the private sector and offering facilitation, then the concessions can go to the private sector, just like we do with the Four Seasons and those kind of places, and then let the benefit be down to them absorbing more people to work. They're paying more social security for them. You see where the money is now going? You see the flow of that money? That flow is coming from non-government into government. And so when the other part is, you must remember, the funds that you see in the bank are individual funds. The bank will only lend you if you are not a risk. Because there are some parameters that are there. The Canadian banks have 43 to 46% as you can only put this amount of money up in your debt servicing per month. There's some of persons who are up to 80, 90% of the money that they work for. I remember we used to have jokes around here saying that people buy a car and they only got $20-something out of their annual payment, and so they live on the other people. What we have not been educated in terms of investment. We have been told that we should save and save and save until we get enough money. But what we don't understand, we're dealing with fractional banking. And when you put your $10 in the bank, and 100 of us put $10 in the bank, that's $110. And then they can now lend in the bank 10 times that amount, because fractional banking, the capital adequacy is only 10%. And if we were doing that amongst ourselves, then we would have had the gut to be able to address a lot of that. So when you see that money in the bank, I hear a lot of people say that, but I worked in central banking, worked with the credit union and all of that kind of thing. Believe me, that money there, you're not going to see that move from there until the person that goes into the bank presents a bankable proposition for that. In 2016, the Caribbean Development Bank did a study, and they found out that small and medium enterprises, their biggest problem was access and availability of capital. The second one was training and their skill set. So, my brother, those are two things we have to address. First, the training, and then the access and availability will become. Because when you go in, they ask you for your statement of affairs. You have to show them what you own, what you owe, and what you earn.
Danny, Chair, suppose you have a guy who is experienced in working in the United States and Wall Street and so on and so forth, but has no money. Couldn't they be found a way to assist somebody like that? Who has potential?
In the bank, there's something called KYC, know your customer. Each individual is treated differently based on the knowledge of that customer. In the credit union, we used to talk about the 5 C's: credit, capital, cash, character, these kind of things. Everyone. Then there was Camel. Then they have different systems. And what I'm saying is that in order for you to access funds, there's a prism that they take you through, and you have to pass. You must meet muster.
Well, the development bank would have.
Oh, the development bank has been politicized.
If it were not, I know that.
In all countries in the Caribbean, you find where development banks tend to be situation where when the government is in power, the people who are on the government side get better conditions, and then when they think they get hounded by the new coming government, you got to pay, things like that. That is what is alleged.
All right. Next.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Parry, you taught me history in school. And I've been following the development of the Nevis Island administration since its inception. And in one of the early budgets, there was the proposal for the South Coast Road. Now, one of the reasons for this Destiny project is that the government admit they can't find money to build a road. And you said in your one of your budget speech, the road to the development is the development of roads. So a government that says they can't find money to buy road, is that a failing government or not?
Well, let me answer you in a roundabout way. A government that is a serious government would find the money to put in the road, maybe water and electricity, and you'll be amazed what could happen. It is not just a matter of hotel development, but housing development and other kinds of development. Certainly, if I were in government and I knew how much money was in the CBI, because I didn't know. I didn't know. They kept it a secret down there. If I had known how much money was in the CBI, I would have done that road. And you know why? The idea of the road didn't start with Daly. In 2017, it started with Simi and Daniel.
I know, because some of the old budget speech from back in 1984.
Yeah, as permanent secretary, I went to Barbados to the British Development Division with a proposal to develop that road, and I came back with a water project. Because they said, look, we're not giving you no money to develop the roads on private property that would enhance the value of people's property. You put your money in water. They demanded that we put the money in water, but it was to do the road.
Anyway, one of my beefs is that there's a lot of undeveloped land in Nevis. And people are seeing that land and they want it because we who have it are sleeping on it and not doing anything about it. So as a government, what will you recommend to the government to be?
Once you put the road in, the property is the value of the property is enhanced. Use taxes to help pay back.
Government here are very punitive. People who are progressive are penalized. We don't produce anything. We have to import almost everything for production. And we are strangled at the port, at the customs. And then having paid the customs, we can't even get the tool because the market is so small to get the revenue from the investment that we make. So the government is upside down. Let us bring in the technology that we can develop here. Let us develop the land, and all unused land should be taxed heavily. And once you develop the land, you get tax incentives that could give to the foreigners who come in to invest. That's my beef.
Well,
right?
Don't use the word invest. Don't have to use the word invest. That's not an investment. Take it from me. Destiny is not an investment. Yeah.
I know, but
no. But you see, the ordinary person can be misled by the use of the word. So I am begging you not to use it. Call it for what it is. Is it a settlement? Let people understand. Those who do the local history see Thomas Warner again.
Yeah, but our government must empower us, the local people, to develop our property.
This government is not going to do it.
But we have to get a government that will help us. That's what we need in this place. Not Destiny. We need our government who we vote for to help us to develop our land.
Any other questions on the floor?
Yes, please. Good evening, everyone. 2 questions.
Who's speaking?
Thank all of you for your presentations. Thank you very much for being willing to come and make presentations. Honorable Joseph Parry, I still call you Honorable. You mentioned something about Port Zante, and basically foreigners were the ones who were given the opportunity to sell down there. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So I was wondering, I don't know who can answer. We have the artisan village down there. I was wondering if there was a way that we could try to enhance that and develop that so that our local people could, profit and benefit from it more. I don't report Zante if those people, they had the connections abroad to be
Yeah,
able
in St.
to.
Martin.
Beg pardon?
Out of St. Martin.
They're out of St. Martin. Oh, I don't know. But I was wondering, listening to you and talking about, basically it's only non-nationals benefiting from Port Zante. I was wondering if there was a way in which we could take our artisan village and somehow expand it so that more of our local people could benefit from it. I don't know if there's a way for us to expand the artisan village. It's there already, and you all would know better how it's doing. That's my first question. My second question, this has been running in my mind, and nobody has given me an answer yet. I suppose nobody has the answer. But I heard on the news that the Miami economy is suffering dreadfully because every winter you had a lot of Canadians. I think we used to call them snowbirds, I don't know. A lot of Canadians would leave Canada and they would go across to Miami and they would spend the winter there. They would spend almost half of the year in Miami. With the coming of the Trump administration, spend almost half of the year in Miami. With the coming of the Trump administration, a lot of these, I'm going to call them snowbirds for want of a better term. A lot of these Canadians, they have become disillusioned. They feel very, very unwelcome now with the coming of the Trump administration. All this talk with Trump wanting Canada to become a part of the United States and all that sort of thing. And a lot of them have not returned to Miami. I have heard that a lot of winter homes in Miami are standing empty and the economy suffered a lot. I was wondering if it was practical for us to try somehow to try to get some of these Canadians to attract them to us. If we can somehow get them to come here and sort of make winter homes. I don't know if I'm expressing myself properly, but this seems to be a market that we can look at. I don't know how we would do it, but I mean, is this something that you all think that is practical? Because I understand thousands and thousands of Canadians, Trump has turned them off, and so now that they don't want to go back to Miami, where are they going to go? Is there any way in which we could attract them to us? I don't know if it's practical.
That's an idea, and I'm sure that it's not unique in terms of what you're saying. Other islands in the Caribbean, maybe Jamaica, Barbados, might be doing it at the moment. I don't know. Huh?
Yes.
So yes, it's something that can be done. How successful it will be, I can't judge, but the possibility is there. But I wouldn't advise that you mix duty-free concessions with the artisan village. I don't think it's a happy mix. But the Lost Street area there, which was flooded the other day by a hurricane, could be built up, and you could have there as such an area. What is important though is that if you do it, you must make sure that some of your people are able to go in there. It's no sense to do it and then it's flooded by people who are from India or wherever they're from. And there is, it's always possible that it will happen because they're already in St. Martin. And so they come here, they're here too, They're in Nevis and St. Kitts now. And their cousins are in St. Thomas, etc., etc. They have a fabric, a family fabric that we don't have. And if something like that happens, you will see them coming in. But what I'm saying, hold something for your own people. That's what I'm saying. Make a definite decision. So-and-so will be Kittitians and Nevisians or regional people. That's all I'm saying. Otherwise, you'll be creating jobs for other people. And I see that happening in St. Kitts and Nevis, where the government creates jobs, but then other people fulfill those jobs because our people, for whatever reason, are not moving quickly enough to get employed. Part of it is education, and part of it is what I don't know. Why I say that, I remember that we had a plant over at Brown Hill, and they were paying $2,200 a month for Nevisians. The Nevisians wouldn't go, or if they go, they left, and Haitians came in and Dominicans came in. So I really don't understand the dynamic there. I don't understand it. I've never been, and I have not been able to check it out, but I can't tell you what is happening in the Nevisian mind when it comes to things like those.
One more question, please, and then we try to close off.
On tourism. Oh, yes. What are your views on developing, on having Charlestown developed as a tourism, as a tourism port, where the cruise ships that come to us, who come right alongside, as opposed to anchoring in the stream and they have to ferry their passengers in? I'm not saying we should duplicate the Port Zante, but at least if the port could accommodate ships alongside, the passengers step off the ship, step on Nevis as opposed to being ferried in. You know, what are your views here?
Well, okay, I'm not giving you views. I'm answering because I kind of know what the problem is. So I'm not giving you views. I'm giving you facts. What happened is a huge sandbank in the mouth of Charlestown. The sand comes down from Indian Castle, settles in Charlestown, then moves all the way over to Newcastle, to Nisbets, etc., etc. For those ships to come in, you'll have to dredge.
Exactly.
But the point is, it will fill up again, and very quickly. That is the problem. It will fill up again and very quickly. So you will find yourself in a very expensive exercise.
Annually.
Yeah. Every few years, you'll have to be filling up. That is why the port at Long Point was developed. The port at Long Point, the idea came from the NRP, you know. The idea was to have a port where the tourist boat could come in and so on, have a deep water pier. Of course, we lost the government, and I am told the port is not even at Long Point. It's at Bojan, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not at Long. Lyra, you should know. They said the port is not at Long Point. We thought it would have been. It's at Bojan. And again, there's the problem. There's a sheet, a rock sheet, right in the mouth of the port, and so only flat bottom boats can come in. If you want big boats to come in, you have to do a very expensive dredging to break up that rock sheet that is there at the mouth of the port. But to me, if I had a choice, I will do that rather than the Charlestown Pier, because the Charlestown Pier is something you have to be filling up over and over and over.
Isabel?
Yes. In relation to what Mr. Tyrrell said, though, do we really, I don't know. I personally, do we want cruise ship tourism in Nevis as we have in St. Kitts necessarily? And to be flooded with cruise ship passengers? I think the present arrangement where they come over on boats from St. Kitts also, I think that seems adequate. I don't know if we really want that kind of I don't know how. I've heard suggestions that the cruise ship tourism in St. Kitts isn't ideal for the actual people who are supposed to be benefiting from it. You know, it doesn't go beyond a certain level of income for these people.
Wash your foot, uncle.
So I'm not sure if that's the type of tourism we necessarily want. But Mr. Parry and so on, I was thinking about the issue of education because so many of our young people choose to do business. You know, they study in terms of CAPE and CXC and so on. The business subjects are much more popular now than the science subjects, for instance, and so on. So is it that despite the fact that it's now Caribbean, curriculum, we have the CXC, Caribbean Examinations Council and so on, is there something that somehow is not getting through to, developing the entrepreneurship that we really want? Because, we have young people, they seem to more gravitate towards the financial industry, so they work with the offshore banks, they work in financial services and so on. A lot of it makes them, again, dependent, like most of us were, on government employment. But I'm wondering, we have some young entrepreneurs, but I think, again, as has been said, there needs to be more incentives for them to be able to take off. And I remember during COVID, a lot of young people, I'm thinking of somebody like Sherry Gage's son, he, in addition to his regular job, he went into farming and he's still doing some farming and so on. There were a few incentives that were given to people at the time to do some agriculture because things economically were so bad and so on. But I'm struck by the fact that so many people go abroad to study business studies and then they come back and just work for government all over again. So maybe there needs to be something, and this may have to be Caribbean-wide because we are doing Caribbean exams, that somehow encourages our people or motivates them to become more entrepreneurial and set up their own businesses and not constantly depend on working for someone else or for a big investor to come in. I'm not at all an economist or a business person myself, but I'm wondering whether, because our young people are bright, they're smart, they're far more educated than they were 30, 40, 50 years ago in terms of the numbers of people going to college and so on. But something maybe doesn't still seem to be getting through, or possibly it's just that they're not finding the incentives they need to establish businesses. I'm not sure.
Gotta give this
There are a few things, Isabel. The business model that is being used by the bank is for you to have fixed streams of income in terms of repayment. If you take a loan, you have to have fixed amount of payments, whether it is every month, every half a month, and that sort of thing. That conflicts with the biggest pillar of our growth. The biggest pillar of our growth has a point between October and March, April, when most of the money is made from that sector. So there's a mismatch between what we promote as our development pivot and what the banking system, which is supposed to be interacting with that. Because, and when that happens, you're going to find that persons are going to use the law of least effort, which is get the business degree, go and sit down in somebody's office so that they can get the fixed stream of income, so that they can pay their bills. So they barely, in economics, they satisfice, but they don't maximize. What needs to happen? You see, we need a cultural change. And so you find that if you were to go to a place like Singapore, you will find that the people are doing jobs, but they still have something. They go home in the night and they have some little skill. They do machinists, and so they're making little widgets that put into something else that go into something that's exported. Most of the time, the people go, they say, I go to work, I'm tired, I go home, I do this one thing, I get my pay at the end of the month, and that sort of thing. I married somebody who gonna put their money with mine, and then we do this, and we take a mortgage, and fixed stream of this, and so forth. There needs to be that. When I was a child in Nevis, it was a lot different, because we were a gross exporter of a lot of things. We exported everything. You go in the evening after 6, and the Westlemen, as they call them, you see people with the cattle and the donkey and all those things. You the Wallace people, them, and coming down to take things to go out. You see, we were shipping St. Kitts. Our butchers go down on a Thursday to St. Kitts and sell. or people who were doing when the boat Christina sank, a lot of people died from here who were farmers. And so there are a number of things that affected all of the cultural things that now make us stay in the place we are. Because then after that, there was the migration to the Virgin Islands and so forth. A lot of our people went to those places and to the United States and so forth. So we developed different business models where we depended on remittances rather than the creativity of our people. Remember, we were building boats like Sakara and Rosal and things like that. You know, artisanship was here. People were doing a lot of things here in Nevis. They were going in the hills, cutting wood, coming back, putting mahogany together, doing all sorts of structure. It was a total different thing. We went through a couple of iterations, and somebody who is an anthropologist and some historians will have to look at those kinds of things and so forth. But we were affected. Our psyche was affected with Christina and our productivity. And there are some other things that are happening right now. And the mendicancy, we were paying for votes. All of these different things change. And things like peace.
All right, folks. We have to cut off in a few minutes.
Very quick ones. Just to make a comment on Isabel's, I don't see anything wrong with mass tourism on a daily basis. You should take a
we don't need
have a look at syndicates when 4 boats are in.
Oh no, that's not. They don't
And
make
just
money.
see the activity, especially on the Frigate Bay side. Lots of people making money, taxes, cycles being rented, etc. So they come and they leave a lot of money behind. I think it's a good thing. The Nevis and taxi men are sitting here all day waiting on a taxi.
Nick, quickly.
What I would want to suggest is that for the young people who do business as the major in university, that the government has a startup, I don't want to say startup kit, but they provide seed money for people, for entrepreneurs to go off and start business. A young person coming out of college with a loan, they can go to the bank and get a loan as capital for capital. So if government were to have a section that provides startup money for businesses, young entrepreneurs, for artisans and all of that, I think that those kind of industries can go forward. But as it is, they have to get the machine now, then do something else and get something else. And they cannot outfit an operation on their own. They don't have the capital. So government needs to come in and provide capital for persons who want to go off and start their businesses.
Good, good comment. I mean, in addition to that, technical support as well would be good in terms of helping these people come and, get to market. Gaskell, quick.
Yes, thank you very much to the panel. A very informative and interesting evening. I had quite a few points. I wanted, finding myself next to Mr. Manners and listening to the good Reverend Byron, I did want to dig a little bit deeper into a few things that I've been reading in the, what's that act called? Anyway, the Integrity in Public Life Act, especially to do with conflicts of interest. However, I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to make one inference from tonight and from the wider experience with this destiny threat, and that is that it has veritably put Nevis on the map more than I think any of us have ever noticed that we've been put on the map before, and we all need to capitalize on that. There's, as we see with Mr. Parry, I really appreciate having a chance to tap into Mr. Parry's experience as a leader. I think we've got a situation here where politics and tribalism have divided us to the extent where a threat like destiny has been able to reach as far as it has. So we've all got to take stock of this moment in time as Nevisians, come back together, use what international acknowledgement we will receive from resisting this destiny threat and move forward together, because that is our best chance. What we have here is a paradise that the rest of the world is going to see more and more. We see what's happening worldwide. It's becoming a smaller world, as in it's more difficult to find paradises such as Nevis. We have to preserve what we have. What we have per capita is a chance for a high quality way of life, and we need to advertise that and take advantage of that as folk who live here, as Nevisians. So once again, thank you all very much. Let's remember that though we're saying no to destiny, we must say yes to what it brings us as a people, which is that we need to come together. We need to take advantage of the opportunity that being exposed and getting on the map brings us. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Great comment. We've gotten great international penetration by these articles from as far as France, Britain, New York Times, all of the big publications around the world has carried this. And so wealthy people read and would get curious about Nevis. It provides an opportunity for people to do partnership at some point with these wealthy people who come here who is going to be curious. And I think that's where Charles is going with his comment. It's a good thing. So through all this that we've been going through, there may be some good silver lining behind this coming with investors who are curious about this land. Everybody, thanks. I hope this was a learning experience and great takeaways from this. And for all these people who are in government and people who are out there in business, would have taken something from this effort by civil society. As you know, civil society is a central plank in the tripartite governance of a country. Business, of course, and then there is the government. And civil society is doing its part. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Hear the list and hear the plan, because no one coming. So we save and we sell. Save, we sell, save, we sell, save, we sell. No one coming, so we save, we sell. If the world turn cold and the big powers flex, we must stand as one. Carry come next. Save we sell, save we sell, save we sell. No one coming, so we save we sell. From shock and stress to the next big test, we don't bet, we build, we invest. The hemisphere talk coming back with force. Big stick politics take a fresh new course. If they say change friends, we say fine, but look who fill in the gap, put that in the book. No quiet surrender, no private deal. If we shift in policy, we need real scholarship, hospitals, energy support, not sweet press release and passport sport. Say we sell, say